I hear artists complain about digital painting feeling slow and cumbersome. Compared to pencil and paper, it's a process that just doesn't feel like art to them. It feels like a bunch of navigating menus. Well, what I want to tell them is that Photoshop enables you to bypass these repetitive steps. One of the ways that it does this is with the Actions palette, which you can find in Window, Actions. An action is simple. It records a series of commands and then allows you to bind them to a single keyboard shortcut. Something that I do all the time is to make a glaze layer. And this involves two steps. I make a new layer, and then I set that layer to multiply. And this allows me to glaze paint over top of things. Well, these two steps, make a new layer, set it to multiply, might take me 5 seconds or even 8 seconds. And based on the way that I like to paint, these 8-second chunks would quickly add up over the course of a day spent painting. So instead, I've got this, a single key press, which makes me a new multiply layer. If I press it again, I have yet another multiply layer. Deciding to make this simple Photoshop action saves me 8 seconds at a time, times 1,000 times a day, adds up pretty quickly. But this specific action might not for you. Remember, recording an action is the simple part. You open the Layers palette, hit the New Action button, give it a name, and with the Record button active, you just do some commands. So, New Layer, set that layer to multiply, and then hit Stop. And there you have a new action. The hard part, however, is identifying something in your workflow that's slowing you down. Once you've identified this speed bump, then you have to dream up some Photoshop solution that'll make an action to solve the problem for you. To prove my point, I recently got a challenge from a Ctrl+Paint community member. He said that he's making storyboard sketches digitally now, and he wants his characters to stand out from the background with solid white fills. It was taking him tons of time to manually fill in these backgrounds behind the characters, and he wondered if there was a way to solve the problem with a single button press. My first reaction? No way. But then I thought about it a bit more, and thought about the steps involved, and figured out there was a way to do this with a Photoshop action. And because an action can be bound to a single keyboard shortcut, I had the one-click solution. So here's how it works. You draw the line art on one layer, and then you run the new action, which I called Fill Solid White Merge. Just hit play, and now there's a white background behind the character. So you can see it has a few restrictions. There's a little bit of junky white lines around the edge. But generally speaking, it solves the design problem. And I wouldn't even have to open that menu if I wanted. I could have bind it to a key like F2 or F3. But since I don't draw digital storyboards, this particular challenge never even occurred to me. But it's a great example of using Photoshop actions to just make your life easier. It's possible that a well-considered action could save you weeks or months of work hours over the course of a career. With this in mind, I'd argue that it's worth familiarizing yourself with the Actions palette. And this will be really an extension of how well you know Photoshop, because an action is only as good as your understanding of the way Photoshop handles issues. And then the next time that you realize you've been wasting time on some repetitive chore, make an action and let the software make your life easier. If you've got some awesome actions, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. Additionally, actions can be exported and shared as a .atn file. So if you know of any artists who are sharing cool actions on their website, share it with the community. And as always, thanks for watching.